Well, hello, and welcome to the start of another weekly reading vlog with Fuzz. I really am not torturing him. He's very malleable. He loves attention in almost all forms except brushing. He hates to be brushed. So, my reading plans for the week. I am continuing Watchmen. I'm actually almost done. I have one chapter left, and if you look at my last week's vlog, I was kind of apprehensive. Like, my mood shifted a lot from very excited to bored, and maybe it's because we're getting near the end and endings always feel good, but what they did with chapter 11 specifically, I really appreciate. And I do think some of my lack of excitement is because I did know the reveal, because of having seen the TV show, because the TV show takes place after the events at the end of this book. So that might be why, like, the plot isn't really my thing, although I do think it's like 80% backstory, which isn't bad, but I don't know. I've just never read something so backstory heavy, like, ever. But, so yeah, I'm going to finish this up probably tomorrow, so I'll probably talk about it more when I've finished it. And on my Kindle, I'm reading We Hunt the Flames, and this is a YA Middle Eastern fantasy, and I am loving it. I wasn't sure what I was going to pick up, so I put on my Twitter and my Instagram votes for between We Hunt the Flames and Ninth House, because I wanted to read one of them, and they're both very different. One's an adult fantasy, kind of urban, and this one's, a YA Middle Eastern. And the Instagram one did We Hunt the Flames, and the Twitter one went Ninth House, so really it didn't help. But I picked up We Hunt the Flames and instantly, loved it. So what I'm loving is that this author's unapologetically being like, I'm going to use Middle Eastern terms and terminology, and I'm not going to, not going to baby you, okay? Sometimes she gives you very good context clues, but other times it's just a word. If I was reading a Spanish book, I do notice when authors, integrate Spanish language, and I'll know that, but I can assume someone who didn't take Spanish class or doesn't have a Hispanic family might not know it. And that's kind of the similar feel I'm getting here, and it's really great for the world building, and I'm really loving it. And it's making me nostalgic for City of Brass, which just got signed on for a Netflix TV show, so that's exciting. So yeah, I'm really liking the world, and the characters are actually very familiar. Stop it. And so in the familiarity is I feel like I have seen similar versions of them in other YA, which isn't bad. I don't mind tropes, but also they are still their own people. So it's not like a big deal. It's just I like that they're familiar. I like their character traits. So I just finished the first part last night, so hoping to in a bit go to silent reading and read as much as I can in an hour. And the other book I'm working on is the short story collection by Carlos Hernandez. I'm just gonna put an image up because the title gets all muddled in my mouth. And I remember in my last vlog I was talking about how I was because I've only read 3 of the stories and they were all kind of short and didn't leave an impression, but I've read more since that have left more of an impression, and some of them are longer, so I do think I was right about why. And yeah, I just love his writing style, though. I really, really need an adult sci-fi work from him. I hope he's working on it. Yeah, I just really want one because his writing style is just so good. I just really like it. So that's what I'm working on right now. I don't know what I'll pick up after I finish Watchmen, or if I'll just, stay with We Hunt the Flames and just enjoy actually focusing on a book. That could be nice. And so yeah, that's the start of this vlog. Aw, look how cute he's being. He pretends like he's not a demon who wakes me up at 5 in the morning. That's what he pretends. He looks so cute for you all, though. Alright, I finished Watchmen. So, I'm going to put it down for color balance. I have a lot of thoughts. I like a lot of what's happened, and I don't like a lot of it. I think my boyfriend and I were talking about this last night when I hadn't quite finished it, because he was telling me some of the things he had learned from the author about how things tied together. Because in this story, so you have a graphic novel, and there's a graphic novel within the graphic novel during that part, and then you have the mixed media that's also sprinkled in there. And yeah, so there's a lot. This is definitely a graphic novel, I think, that rewards people who reread it. And he had just read it twice, my Ryan. And so he was telling me something about that graphic novel within this graphic novel, like the story within Watchmen, and how it related to a character. And I'm like, oh, that's actually really cool. I'm glad you told me, because I missed that. Like, I didn't see that connection. It's one of those things that's more obvious after you know. And so I think we even said this. We're like 10 out of 10 ideas, but like he said 8 out of 10 execution. I'm more like a 6.5 to 7, because your message is only good if someone receives it. That said, if I had reread it, maybe I would have picked it up. I don't know. And I also feel, so I watched the show before I read this, and I don't think I needed to read this to understand the show. But the show does spoil the end of this book. And so I think part of my pacing problems while reading it is because I knew where we were going, and it wasn't like an exciting journey to get there. Like I said, it was just a bunch of nostalgia and backstory. Like this thing is 60% backstory, which is, I guess, fine, but like there are very interesting characters and like what these characters are meant to represent. It's actually a very densely metaphorical work, but I just don't think that's what I expected or wanted when I picked it up. Like, I knew it wasn't a traditional superhero story. I did not expect that. I've seen the movie and I watched the show, and I know it's like kind of almost like, I don't know if it's actually like the anti-hero story, but kind of is. So yeah, I don't know what I'm going to rate it. I'm very, very mixed feelings right now. But I do think that if you choose to read this before the show, don't let this tell you what the show will be like. The show is 10 out of 10 ideas and 10 out of 10 execution. I love the show so much. But I am glad I read this, because I am like excited to like look at the people who put work into deep dives into like the themes and the ideas that are in this work, because that is what it does well, is have these ideas and these connections. But like I said, the execution, like the pacing's rough, and it's really hard sometimes to see the connections that the author hopes you make. So that's my thoughts there. And guys, this is a big thing. I finished, and I'm remembering to tell you that I finished Before They Are Hanged. Now, if this is your first time here, I have been reading this audiobook for like weeks. Not because it's bad, but because I'm horrendous at audiobooks. I only read them on my walk. And although I try to walk every day for like an hour or so, that's still only like an hour or so of audiobook time a day. And that's if there's not a podcast that calls to me. But I finished it. And so, if you're new to BookTube, the First Law Trilogy is a very well-loved grimdark. You can look up people's thoughts on it if you really want to know. It's a story that's very character-driven, not a lot of plot. In the second one, it's very similar to Avengers Infinity Wars in that all of our characters have been kind of grouped into different locations to do different things that in theory will be relevant to the plot. And so in these 3 groups, I liked 2 of the locations much more than the third one. Ironically, the third one has one of my favorite characters and is in probably the more main arc of the book. So that was, disappointing. Although I forgot how much I did like some character developments that happened in that portion. I'm being purposefully vague for people who haven't read it. So yeah, and I think only liking 2 of the 3 parts does like make it a 4-star read for me, even though like this audiobook narrator, man, out of the park. I would listen to almost anything by him. And I found out he did Little Hatred, which is the newest one after the standalones. I hope you guys enjoy this guy. He's just obnoxious to me. Anyways. So yeah, I'm excited though. I already have my hold for Last Argument of Kings. I don't know what any of these titles mean. The first one is The Blade itself, and then this one is Before They Are Hanged, and the last one's The Last Argument of Kings. And they all make me feel dumb, because I feel like I read the book. I've read the book twice, and I just don't know what it means, or what it's a symbolism for. Sometimes I just feel dumb. This is a longer check-in than I thought, so I'm just going to keep checking in then. I have been continuing We Hunt the Flames, I'm having a fun time. I really want to be reading it right now instead of talking to you guys, so that's always a good sign. Although I'm 60% of the way through, and there was like a tiny to medium little lull of pacing for me, but there's some fun character interactions and world building and plot development happening right now. So yeah, I like it. So I will probably tell you guys just more about it when I finish, because I hope to finish it soon. And I'm still working on Cuban's Guide, Santeria. I'll put the image up because I can never. That title is like 10 words, I swear. Um, we are in a good mesh of stories right now. The last few I've read have been just like A plus. Like the one I read this morning was like so cool. Um, and these are again all longer than the initial. I think I said originally the initial ones were like 30. No, that's the short ones that bother me are like 15 pages. When they're 30, that's fine. 30 seems to be the sweet spot for this author right now, and I'm here for it. I'm liking it. Excited to read more of it. So yeah, that's it for this one. I will check in when I've read more things. So it's been a minute, but I finished We Hunt the Flames and the Assimilated Cuban's Guide to Quantum Santeria. Yes, and both were wonderful. So I gave We Hunt the Flames 4 stars, and I do have like Goodreads thoughts up because I somehow have this motivation to be better about it. So we'll see how long that lasts. But I really loved the world. I really liked the character interactions. I could not put down the last 100 pages of this story. It was just so fun. I had such a good time. I do not know if you're someone who reads a lot of YA, if it will feel like an interesting plot or not. I only read a few YA a year. Like, it's probably only 10% of my reading, maybe 20. I'm not very sure. Also, Decat has showed up. But I had a great time. I was looking to see when the second book comes out, because it's I believe a duology, and cats moving things. But much to my disappointment, it's going to be postponed until January. I really wanted to read it this year. That was part of why I picked it up, but it's okay. I will make it. But man, it was a good ending. And so for Cuban's Guide, Santeria, I love this short story collection. I don't know why. It's so happy. And not. Like, there is sad ideas and concepts. There's loss and everything. My Hispanic Latinx heart, it loved it so much. It's so cool. And I had such a fun time. Like, I just felt this joy while reading it. This, I'm so happy I'm reading this feeling. And I normally only read 1, maybe 2 stories a day because I don't want to get burnt out on them. You know, that whole, oh, you're in a new place. Now you're in another new place. You know, like, yeah, that whole stutter. I didn't want to get burnt out from that in short story collections. But yesterday I was going to start a new book because I had finished We Hunt the Flames. And instead I was just like, no, I'm just going to keep reading these. And one of the stories, so I haven't talked about this, but I'm a piano player. Well, I say that, haven't touched my piano over there in like years. But I was classically trained from kindergarten to the end of high school. I had a piano teacher. And I learned how to play the Fantasy Impromptu by Chopin. And that exact name of that piece that I have known since 3rd grade, like I memorized. I have not technically great at it, but I can play it. Right now, if I went to a piano without having practiced it, I could have it happen because it's been in my hands. And those who play instruments understand what I mean by that. It's just been there for so long. And at first I'm like, is that song? And I looked at him and was like, that's that song. And because I have that connection to that song, that story was so cool. How they described that song verbally, it was so cool. So, I don't know, I felt like there were a lot of things that just personally connected with me in these stories. So I don't know if other people would connect to it the same way, but if you want fun, short sci-fi stories, I think they were good. Especially if you want a Latinx, like, lens, there are so many accurate descriptions. There was one story where a family is traveling to see their Cuban relatives, and they're bringing like 5 suitcases, and 3 of them are supposed to be left behind with like toothpaste and stuff. We just did that 3 years ago with my family. Like, not to Cuba, I'm not Cuban, but that act is so relatable to me. And, and also, I am very pro how many Hispanic physicists were in this book. I am a physicist, and I am all about it. When I went to school, there was only one Latinx physics teacher, and he put in his all, and I really appreciated him. But otherwise, it was just a bunch of white guys. Maybe a few females, but it was just a bunch of old white guys. So I just appreciated so much of that. It's just, yeah, I mean, it had a very mediocre start for me, but once I got past the first 50 pages, the last 200 just sang. And so I finished those two, right? So I had to start something else because the vlog is not finished yet. I started City of Miracles by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the third Divine Cities book. This is a book I have somehow been avoiding forever. I like these books so much. Like, I'm already, I want to say 70, 80 pages in, and I'm reminded why I really like this author's writing style. It's so immersive. That's the word. It's so immersive for me. And I don't know why I've been avoiding it, but yeah, I'm very happy I picked it up. I think I can finish it before the end of this vlog. We will see. But yeah, and if you haven't read that trilogy and you really like Foundryside, you should pick that up. I haven't done reviews for them because these are things I've found before BookTube, but it's basically a good mesh of, God fantasy, right? You have a lot of divine intervention in the world. There's a good smattering of politics and corruption. But honestly, at its core, I feel like each book's a really good blend of fantasy and mystery. Like each book so far, and I think this one's followed a simpler path so far, you have a character, and we do follow the same group. But this trilogy reminds me of the Inheritance trilogy in that each book is connected, but not in a traditional sense. Like the second book in this book, 13 years have taken place, and we're following a different perspective, but we know the character. The character's been in the first two books. And yeah, it's just, if you like mystery books, I really think you would like these. At least I get those vibes when I read them. Not that I'm a particularly well-read person in mystery, but I get those vibes because I did read those books a lot growing up because they were the books that my mom and my grandma had on the shelves. So that's what I did. And so yeah, these were great reads. I've had a really good last few days of reading. Like I'm just, you're just so grateful when you pick good things for yourself. You never know, right? You try your best, but you never know. So I'm going to go, oh my goodness, because he's mad because he thinks it's time for food. Well, happy Memorial Day. I think I'm going to end the vlog here because, alas, I do not think I will finish City of Miracles today. I am having a really good time with it, though. I'm about halfway through, and everything I said previously still holds, although I don't think I really sold the series well. So really why I think each of these is a mystery book is this is a world that used to have a bunch of gods, a bunch of divine presence, so there's a bunch of magic on the continent. And when we're in the stories, that should all be gone because the gods were all gotten rid of by some war in the past. So what happens, at least in the first book, is you have Shara, who has to go explore in a city on the continent where the magic used to be, and magic's happening again, and so they have to figure out why. And that sort of thing. And actually, there actually is like a murder mystery element, like someone gets killed. And I know I mentioned in the previous vlog clip that these are kind of like fantasy murder mystery sort of things for me. And they really are. I think each one has a murder, now that I'm thinking about it. Anyways, I'm just having a great time. It's just so good. And I really like exploring our current point of view. He's been in all the books, and he's just this rugged bodyguard guy, and he's very you always got the sense that he was complex, even though it didn't maybe seem like it on the surface, you always knew he was more than just the muscle, and it's just really great to have that confirmed and get more of his backstory. And if you follow me on Twitter, you also know that I started the Radium Girls, and my scientist brain is so angry. Oh, but it's so good. So this is the audiobook I'm picking up, and this is an audiobook where I'm like going to go on a walk soon because I need to listen to more of it. I don't know why. It's like watching a crash. You just can't stop. The premise of this is in the late 19-teens, early mid-20s, we as a society have been starting to use radium and other radioactive things, and radium could make things glow in the dark when combined with other stuff. So that'd be used a lot on military equipment to make things glow in the dark, like certain screens, and also on watches, but also people wanted shiny watches. And what they did is they paid a bunch of women to paint these things. And we are the only country who did this, but we would have them paint by putting the brush in their mouth. And I already knew beforehand what gross radiation poisoning things I would see because I have to prepare myself because radiation is like a big trigger content warning for me. I don't know why. Like, I watched Chernobyl, the TV show, very good, but like nothing creeps me out more than radiation damage or poisoning. It's just such a silent killer, and it's just, yeah. Well, even still knowing that, I'm just so angry because it's not one of those things where it's like we didn't know how bad it was. No, we knew. The people who actually ran this firm were doctors in the research who knew, who would never allow themselves to do this, who even like one warned one of the workers like, hey, don't put that in your mouth, you'll get sick. But when the masses got nervous, they'd be like, no, radium's very safe, it will actually make you healthier. Like, oh my goodness. Capitalism is the worst. So yeah, I am only 13% of the way in. I am still very frustrated about it, and I don't know. You might only get my vlog and wrap up thoughts on it, or maybe I'll make a video dedicated to science-y misconceptions and how it really messes with people and how corporations suck. 'Cause that's like a thing for a lot of stuff, you know? I mean, we don't talk about it as much because it's an even slower killer, but like cigarettes. We knew how bad those were for a long time and stuff like that. But it's so good though. And I'll have to look it up, but I think the narrator might be the same one I had for the Little Women book, which that's just weird, right? It's like Little Women, Radium Girls, not the same. So that's been an interesting auditory experience. So yeah, but happy Memorial Day. I am just gonna read, hang out, not do much. I am treating it like a day off, but honestly, with being home all the time, it doesn't feel like a holiday. So we shall see. And yeah, if you have read any of these things or are curious about anything else, comment down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.